My name is Carlton Cartwright. I'm the Executive Director for the Veterans Memorial and Multicultural Histories Incorporated. And today is March the 8th, 2024, and we are at Riviera Beach Preparatory Achievement Academy, and I have my students with me today. And that is Samaya, Dorkita, London, Sharon, Amy, Felipe, Mr. Moses, Felipe, and Amari.
Yvonne.
Okay. Oh, come on. How could I forget? Okay, and sir, what is your name?
I'm Kevin Anderson.
Okay, Kevin, and when did you go into service?
I was in the Air Force from 1982 through 1991.
Okay. Where were you when you enlisted?
I joined the.
By the way, were you drafted or enlisted?
No, when I went into the Air Force, the draft wasn't in place, so I voluntarily entered the Air Force.
Okay.
In 1982, and I was in Maryland, a place called Landover, Maryland.
Okay, and what were you doing at the time?
At the
before
time,
you went in?
I was in high school.
Okay, all right, all right. Where was that? What city?
That was also in Maryland.
Okay,
Right.
all right. What city do you live in now?
I live in West Palm Beach.
Okay, fine. Tell us about basic training.
Sure.
Where did you go to basic training?
Sure. I went to basic training in San Antonio, Texas. The Air Force only conducts its basic training at that location at a place called Lackland Air Force Base. So I went in the August of 1982. We operate with AFSCs,
Got it.
known as an Air Force Specialty Code.
Mm-hmm.
And prior to arriving in basic training, no one knows what their AFSC is going to be. You have an idea of what it is that you're looking to do, what the needs of the Air Force and the mission dictate. So once I arrived there, I spent minimal time because of my previous experience with Air Force Junior ROTC. And at that point, right before I left, that's when I received the assignment and location, as well as the job title for what's known as an Air Force Administrative Management Specialist.
Gotcha. Okay, so anyway, basic training, what were the instructors like? How was the food? How long was it? Was it 6, 8 weeks?
It's 8 weeks now. For me, it amounted to about 2 weeks. And I'll tell you why. I was in ROTC, which is the Reserve Officers Training Corps. And I did that in high school. When I went through high school, that was a program which indoctrinated you to the customs and courtesies of the Air Force, pretty much taught an enlisted person everything they needed to know about the basic training experience. So all I had to do was go to basic training, get my hair cut, get my uniform on, and survive for 2 weeks, test out, and then I went to my technical training school. The food was good. The Air Force food is excellent. Everybody nowadays is doing TikTok, we're doing the Instagram. I encourage you to go to those web sites and to check out the differences between Air Force food versus Marine food versus Navy versus Army food. Food was really good. We were talking everything from seafood to poultry to steak from time to time, things that you could drink. Now, with respect to my experience in the basic training, that too is a little bit more sophisticated than what you would think a Air Force basic training might consist of. So the arrival at Lackland Air Force Base is typically at a public airport. So there's only so much that can be done to you in public. And when I say done to you, I'm not trying to victimize the military, but I will say it's not like going to see grandma. You arrive and you are you're greeted by a person from the personnel office who will make sure that you phone home, advising them of your arrival. They make sure that you're safe and you're healthy, and then you get on a bus and you travel out to the base. As you are experiencing this reception, things get ratcheted up a little bit. You know, you're talked to a little bit more sternly. You are at times probably yelled at, but not to a point where you're just going to be humiliated, but definitely to a point where you're intimidated. Upon your arrival, for me, I got there at like 2 in the morning. So got off the bus. There were quite a few of us standing in line, and all of a sudden this door flies open. And these military training instructors, that's what they're called in the Air Force, with Smokey the Bear hats on. They came running out, and all I could see was their shirts flapping in the wind because they were running so fast, and people, like, we started running, because we didn't know what was going on, and after they kind of settled us down and caught up with us, we came back. But they told us who they were and what we could expect, and I brought a boom box with me. I brought a suitcase with me. I brought I bought snacks, and you're not having any of that. So ultimately, that was confiscated, and we went upstairs, and we were introduced to where we would live, and then we came down and we got something to eat and went to sleep for about 40 minutes, and then off we went for the next 24 hours.
Okay. All right. So, tell me 2 of your most memorable experiences in basic training.
There was an advanced placement that I had to undergo because I was only there for about 2 weeks. I was what's known as a bypass student. So in order to prove to them that I learned everything that I needed to know in high school, they took me from the entry-level squadron, as they call it, that's the unit of organization, to a graduating squadron who had been there for 8 weeks or so, and just plopped me in there. So when I went in the door, everyone saw me. I had a bald head, and I had my uniform on, and I had the title of what's known as we call new guys pickles, because you're wearing all green and you got a bald head, and so when you walk in, everyone knows that you're a pickle. And these guys had been there for 8 weeks, so they had hair, and they had haircuts, that were kind of, back then we had fades, so they were faded out, and these guys, they were ready to roll. So I walked in, and they asked me, hey, pickle, what are you doing? You think you're gonna hang? And I'm gonna hang. So the next morning we went, and we had to take a test. And they had prepared for the test for weeks, and I had just gotten there. So I sat down, I took the test. Did very well on the test. Some of those guys didn't even pass the test, so they washed back. And all of them looked at me and they said, "Man, I don't know what you're learning, bro, but it's definitely what we need." And I became the squadron leader at the time. So they pushed me right up to the front, and I began taking the guys over.
Okay, taking them over where?
Meaning that you have a session where you are exposed to everything that you've learned, and you have to master that. And you go to a location where you shoot. You are tested on physical agility.
Right.
You are tested on your ability to endure stress by, for example, climbing to the top of a pole. And then once you're there, you have to grab onto like a wire that's suspended from pole to pole. But beneath you is water. And the water is probably 3 feet deep. But it's covered with this algae. It smells. There are lily pads on top of it. It's in a swamp area. You've got these military training instructors screaming at you and telling you what's going to happen if you fall in the water. And I believe there might have been someone in the water, like someone with a mask or something and a scuba tank or something, which would lead you to think that you were going to sink to the bottom and you'd have to be rescued. And so leading them over is telling these guys, look, we're going to make it. We're all going to make it. And if you look like you're not going to make it, I'm going to jump in, I'm going to help you make it. So let's go. One by one, let's go. Leading those guys over, getting on the rope, you have to like pretty much lay down, grab it, put your feet in front of you and inchworm across.
Right.
And while you're inchworming across, you're looking back at the guys, you're going, let's go. And then when you get down, you're there at the end telling these guys, you can make it, Johnson, you can make it, David, you can make it. That kind of thing. And then when everybody is accounted for, you're counting off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, let's go. You go to the next,
Challenge.
obstacle that you have to endure. That kind of thing. So you go through everything. And at the end, when everybody's made it through, and only when everybody's made it through, you've made it through. If one guy doesn't make it through, nobody made it through.
Okay.
Everybody has to make it through.
Okay. Okay. So where was tech school?
Tech school was at Keesler Air Force Base in Biloxi, Mississippi.
Okay, so what was your AFSC?
It was an Air Force administrative management specialist
Okay.
that I begrudged. I could not believe that I had gone this far and they were going to make me what was equivalent to a secretary. So when I was given the assignment, I was terribly upset. But I went, and there's a whole story behind that.
Okay, where's the first duty station?
First duty station was Hancock Field, 47th 89th Air Base Group in Syracuse, New York.
Okay, so tell us the story about becoming a secretary.
All right, so I wanted to do something that was more mission oriented, such as maybe flight crew, meaning you're on airplanes, you're doing stuff while you're going from place to place. Maybe something involving radar, or something that's traditionally what you would see as an Air Force experience. And when I got this assignment, I looked at it and I thought, you mean to tell me I'm going to be typing? And I'm going to be maintaining manuals, and I'm going to be sitting in an office answering telephones? I just wasn't having it. So, I went, and, the class that you go through involved probably about 100 people sitting there, and we have desks and we have typewriters, and there's an instructor in the front, and you're learning how to type. I'd never typed in my life. And you're learning how to do correspondence, and I didn't know anything about correspondence. And I'm sitting there thinking, you gotta be kidding me. I didn't sign up for this. I could not type. I was terrible. And what I do remember is that there was a tech sergeant, and he was a black tech sergeant. His name was Tech Sergeant Weaver. And he pulled me aside, and he said, listen, man, I know this isn't what you want, but this is probably what you need. And I'm going to tell you right now, man, I want you to just hang in there, and just hang in there for me, man. Just hang there. And man, I wept because I was so upset. And he hugged me and goes, look, man, look, come on, man. You can do this, man. I'm telling you, it's going to work for you, brother. And I said, all right, man. So I went back upstairs, and there I went, and I'm sitting there, I'm typing, home row keys, J, Q, L, and eventually I got the hang of it. And when I graduated from the tech school, I remembered that he had encouraged me, and I remembered that he had given me stories about his background, and that he was a guy that looked like me. A guy that didn't tell me, look, man, just turn around and quit or go to another specialty or whatever. He saw enough in what I brought to the equation to inspire me to go on. I never forgot that guy. So, and towards the end of the story today, you're going to learn how that, in my life, made a big, big difference.
Okay, okay. So I guess basic training was about the same. How many weeks was that? I mean tech school.
No, tech school was longer. Tech school was 6 to 8 weeks. I think it might have been 8 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you apparently impressed someone to get out of. You said 2 weeks, right?
That's basic training.
Right. Yeah. Well. Okay. Yeah. Tech school for admin, normally 6 weeks. But anyway. Okay. So where that duty station, the first one, where? Hancock?
It was Syracuse, New York.
Okay.
Hancock Field.
Okay. And how long was your tour?
I was there for about 2 years before the base closed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Before we go any further, you said you went in what year, and what year did you get out of the military?
I went in 1982.
And you got out when?
And I terminated in 1991.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. It's just about 10 years, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So in Syracuse, tell us about your job. Tell us about Syracuse.
Sure.
And did you go on any, were you deployed at all? Did you go on maneuvers? So on and so forth during that tour?
No. Syracuse was a small station. It was in a city. And our mission was to monitor the Northeast United States and some portions of Canada. We had towers and people called scope dopes. Their job was to sit there and look at these radars all day long. And we also had a mission of air-to-ground support, but those planes never deployed. because quite frankly, people just weren't trying to invade Syracuse, New York.
Okay.
All right, so.
Thank God for that.
But that's not why they were there.
Well,
All right, so my job, I started out in the post office as an administrative management specialist. I was entrusted with material to process and to take it from office to office. And what happened was that someone got sick in the documentation management office, and they needed somebody who knew how to type. And I thought about it, and they asked me, "Do you know how to type?" I said, "Yeah, I think I can type a little bit," but I was horrible. But I knew how to, and so they brought me up to the administrative management office, and they dusted me off. I took off my green uniform. I put on these blues, Air Force blues,
Right.
sky blue shirt, dark blue pants, patent leather shoes, shiny belt buckle, and I sat there, and here I am. This office full of people. Nobody looked like me. Everybody looked like someone who didn't look like me. I'll just say that. And I sat there, and there was a man. His name was Jay Rivest. He came over to me, and said he'd been watching me. He said he wanted to work with me, and he and I together, he took me under his wing, and he showed me how to do documentation management. And while I was there, though, it's what I saw. The judge advocate, meaning the lawyers in the military, they were working in the same building with us. The personnel manager was working in the same building with us, and our commander, the base commander, was working in the same building. So I had that exposure that I needed in order to catch someone's eye. And that went on for about 2 years with me working there pretty much in an office environment that got me the connections that I needed and gave me the confidence that I needed in order to move to the next level.
okay. So where did we go from there?
From there, when the base closed, before it closed, I learned about these opportunities. There was something known as the below the zone promotion. And what that is it's an opportunity to compete, to get stripes on your arm. In the Air Force, stripes mean money. So you had to literally go before a board and answer a bunch of questions. You have to let them take a look at your outward appearance, to check out your demeanor and your record. I would never have known anything about that had I not been placed in that office with all the bigwigs. So I studied, and I went below the zone. And when I went below the zone, I competed with every single airman on the base, every last one. And they could only pick one. And we're talking, we had about probably 500 airmen on the base, and one slot, and everybody and their brother was competing for that position. And I went in there, when I tell you, I was cleaner than the Board of Health. I knew my information inside and out. Man, you couldn't tell me that I wasn't going to get it. And I went in there and blew it away. And I walked out of there, man, with 3 stripes.
Congratulations.
Here I was. I'd only been in for like 18 months, and here I was a senior airman getting ready to become a sergeant in about like 2 years. So I would never have gotten that had I not had that opportunity. I wouldn't have gotten that opportunity if I didn't learn how to type. I wouldn't have learned how to type if I didn't go through the administrative management school. So, things stacked and stacked and stacked and stacked. So when I walked out of it with those 3 stripes on my arm, life changed. I was now sent to Moody Air Force Base in Georgia. The base closed, but I went to Moody Air Force Base, and that was probably the first time that I experienced racism.
Really?
Racism, all right?
What state is Moody in?
Moody is in Georgia. It's in Valdosta, Georgia. It's about an hour and a half above Tallahassee, where Florida State is located. And so here I came, this black man. I was every bit of, might have been 19, might have been. And I'd never been that far south. I'd never been that hot in my life. I had a car, didn't have air conditioning. I had met a young lady, actually my high school girlfriend, and we got married, and we drove down together in a Ford Escort with no air conditioning, in a U-Haul on the back of the Ford Escort. And we come walking through, these towns like Blackshear, Ludowici. These are places I'd never heard of.
Right.
Macon County,
Hello.
And riding through there in the dark. and I'm getting out my car, going into these little convenience stores, like on the side of the road. You know, they were looking at me like I stole something, and I'm looking at them like, what's wrong with you? You know, come on, you know, get to the counter. I got money, man. Come on. And so, we encountered a person who tried to rip us off, and I just started, you know, raising all kinds of cane. And I remember, a humble black guy. He walked up and he whispered in my ear. He goes, "Don't get locked up here," like that. And I thought, yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah. So I turned around, I got in my car, and I looked at my new wife. I said, "You know what? We're going to keep driving." And she goes, "What's wrong?" I tell you, just don't worry about it. We got it. So that was one of those experiences that, you know, kind of it awakened me to the reality of racism still being alive and well in the country.
Right. What year was that?
I was in 80. No, I was 84.
Okay.
84, the end of 84. Right. Then when I got to the air base, you know, one of the things that people need to understand is that everywhere you go, it's going to be influenced by where you are. So just because you're in the Air Force, you know, or just because you're in college, it doesn't mean that like the town that you're in will not inspire people on an Air Force base or at a university to do what the town does. So these people at this Air Force base, they were as racist at times as the folks in the local community.
Right.
And they let you know that they were not happy, that you were walking around thinking that you were in D.C. or you were in New York, because you weren't. Mm-hmm. You were in the South, in the deep South. So I had to make some adjustments with some of the things that I did, some of the things that I said. I had to be cautious, and ultimately I was reassigned to from the main office with the light blue shirt and the blue pants and the shiny buckle and shiny shoes. I was reassigned to like a dungeon. It was what's known as the publications distribution office. I was in a basement, and I was literally like counting out forms and manuals and putting them in boxes and putting them out the door for people to deliver them.
Right.
I didn't have any contact with the public. I didn't have any opportunity to lead people. I was pretty much told that if you don't like toe this line, and you better toe it, that we're going to see to it that you get discharged with some form of unfavorable discharge. And I couldn't believe it. You know, there was so much stress, and I thought it was so wrong. I wanted to go to school at night, and I was told, no, you're not going to do any of that. You're just going to stay here and you're going to work, and then you're going to re-enlist again, and we'll see what develops. Yeah. So that was one of those times that I felt where racism was attributed to what happened, and it impacted me directly.
Okay. All right. So, where was your next duty base?
Well,
Did you deploy or travel at all while you were there?
I did. I was a part of the Rapid Deployment Force,
Oh.
and our job was to go wherever the mission sent us, so that we supported the troops that were in the mission. So, like, whereas we didn't fly, we didn't drop bombs, we didn't, we weren't on the scopes, but we supported those who did with
Right.
the administrative capabilities. So, but let me tell you, what happened was while I was working in that basement, yet another man who looked just like me, a guy by the name of Willie Lee. He was a staff sergeant. He kept seeing me, and he kept getting glimpses of me. Eventually, he pulled me to the side, and he said, "Hey man, how would you like to come work with us? I can talk to the major, and I can talk to the senior master sergeant, and let me see if I can get you to come work with us, man. Because I thought like you were going to be with us, and it come to find out I was supposed to work with him, and I was redirected. I was diverted when I went to the base.
Right.
So he rescued me, brought me up from the basement, put me in the post office, and he was the type of guy that said, "Look, man, like, you want to go to school?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Well, you can go to school. You can, all you have to do, man, is work for me, like, pretty much during the day, and then it's over at 11 in the morning, study, man, between like 11 and 1, and when the mail comes back in, process it, and then do what you need to do from 3 until.
Right.
So I was able to resume studies. I was able to kind of watch this guy manage the post office and watch this guy deal with other people in a managerial capacity, and it gave me the confidence, it gave me the security that I needed in order to continue on with my studies. So ultimately, I'll tell you what I did was there was an opportunity to leave the administrative management position and to work in the legal office temporarily.
Okay.
And this was all under his watch. And I walked in that office. And when I walked in that office and started working temporarily, I started looking around. And I started looking at the diplomas. I started looking at the chairs. And at night, what I would do is I'd kind of walk through there and pretend like, I was one of the lawyers. So I'd sit in the chair and I would pretend like I was interviewing someone, and I would do things like that. And then eventually, I applied to retrain into the legal field, and I was accepted.
Okay.
And off I went to retrain into legal.
Okay.
And that got me out of that base.
Okay, so they got you out. So where was the next duty station?
Went back to Mississippi,
Okay.
back to Biloxi, Mississippi, for paralegal management training. And then from Mississippi, I went to Tyndall Air Force Base in Panama City, Florida.
Okay.
I became a paralegal specialist at that point.
Okay. And so that was on the Panhandle?
That is on the Panhandle, correct.
At what base?
Tyndall
Tyndall,
Air
right?
Force
That's
Base.
right. That's right. Yeah. Okay. So how far in are we now?
We are now,
Close to 10
and
years.
I've only been in at this point. Really not that long, to be frank with you. Honestly,
By the time you got to Tyndall, how long have you been in?
I was still on my first enlistment.
Oh, okay.
I was whizzing. I mean, I wasn't just sitting there letting
Right.
people like punch me in the gut.
Right.
So I was all this whole story, all the stuff I'm telling you about, took place during one enlistment.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
went, and by then, when I got to Tyndall, I was a full-fledged sergeant. I was now like on my second, AFSC.
Were you E4, E5?
I was an E4 at
Okay.
the time, and so when I got to Tyndall, I got stationed at the legal office, and that's where it kicked in full time. And I started, studying at night, and going to school. Now, Tyndall Air Force Base is located pretty close to Florida State University, and I knew that. So Florida State had some courses that you could take at night, and I did that. But once again, I had an opportunity to go work in a satellite on the base.
Right.
And that satellite was attended by one person, that would be me, and another officer. Lo and behold, who comes walking in? It's a woman who looks just like me, who not only did she look like me, she had gone through some of the things I had gone through.
Right.
And they put her, or at least that opportunity became available for her with me, and she took it. And so the two of us are there. Here I am. I'm looking at this woman, with brown skin. She's looking at this man with brown skin.
Right.
And she's every bit of like, I'd say 28, 29.
Right.
She's a lawyer. She had gone to Harvard, undergrad.
Wow.
And then she went to the University of Virginia for law school. We're looking at each other, and she's like, well, what do you want to do? And I was like, I want to work for you, but I'm in school. And she understood it. And she says, well, you keep going. We had a little arrangement, just she and I. You go to school, get the job done. I don't care when you get it done. If you got to come back at night and get it done, but go to school. And she let me go to school pretty much full time while I was in the Air Force.
Wow.
And not only did she let me go to school full time when I was in the Air Force, I was able to compete yet again for what is known as the bootstrap program, which allows you to leave active duty, but receive active duty pay, and to go to any college or university in the country that you can get into. And I was able to do that. I competed, once again, went up against a ton of people, got it, And when I received that permission to do so, I left the base and I selected Florida State. And that's where I went to undergrad.
Okay.
I have a bachelor's degree in criminology from Florida State.
Okay.
The catch is that when you get that degree, having been released to do so, you have to go back to the base.
Right.
And pretty much for every year that you're gone, you have to come back and you have to repay.
Right.
Unless a war breaks out.
Okay.
When I came back to the base, guess what happened? A week later,
Oh,
a war broke out.
Okay.
And that's good and it's bad. It broke out, and I'm relieved because I was gone for like 3 years. I was gone a long time.
Yeah.
You know, a really long time. And but on the other hand, the guys in the unit, we had to send one guy, and they covered me. And these guys were looking at me like, man, we got to send one guy, man. You know. And of course, I'm thinking, all right, man, I've been gone for all this time. You guys have been covering me. You didn't get another replacement. All right, it's on me, man. I'll go. So I went. You know, I went to what's known as Desert Shield. People think of Desert Storm, but Desert Shield preceded Desert Storm in Saudi Arabia. So, you know, I'd only been back a week. You know, and it was August of 1990. So at that point, I had 2 kids. Ebony and Brittany. Brittany, I don't think she was even walking, but Ebony, she was old enough to know who I was, and so I got up my gear, got up my stuff. I went home, told my wife because I couldn't tell her until like I was leaving. I couldn't tell her what was going on. It was secret at the time. It's since been declassified. So I needed to go somewhere, you know, and it was. You know, I was going to be leaving in about 20 minutes. And I mean, that's a heck of a thing to tell someone, you know, that you're leaving. You can't tell them where you're going.
Right.
But it's going to be in about 20 minutes. So I remember a truck pulling up into our you know, in our driveway.
Right.
Lived in base housing. And I remember this guy kind of knocking on the door and he's saying, look, I'll be here, man. I'll be out here. I'll be waiting for you. So I got my gear. I had a bag. We call it a rapid deployment bag. I had a bag. My bag was packed. I was in a 325th Combat Support Group. I grabbed my bag. I said, listen, I'll be back, man. You take care of everybody. And she cried. She's like, where you going? I'm like, well, I'll be back. I'll let you know. I'll be back. You know, like that. So I put a bag on, got in the truck, and everybody's at the door. She's weeping, and I'm like, oh, my God. She's crying. My daughter's crying. She called my mom, and I'm like, oh. So, you know, off we go. You know, we go, you know, go get the shots, you know, go to we had a little makeshift place where just go and take your clothes off, get your shots right then and there. About 10 minutes later, like all these shots. You go to another place, I got my gun, you know, and they put it in the crate. They took me to the airport, our civilian airport, regular airport, not a military airport.
Right.
And they walked me to the tarmac and walked me to the plane, took my gun, put it under, and I was in my uniform, and they took me on the plane, and they said, you know, you're gonna sit right here, man. Just as soon as we get where we're going, you're getting off first. So I went to Charleston, South Carolina, and sure enough, when the plane landed, they came and got me. They had everybody stay down and stay seated, and I walked down to the bottom of the plane, got my rifle, and this is a real airport, like just like at the Palm Beach International Airport, where
Right.
people are going on trips and traveling with their families, and by now the world knew that Iraq had invaded Kuwait, and the
Right.
world knew that we were getting ready to do something in response to it. And military people coming through the airport was like eye-catching. The media was all over the place,
Right.
and I wasn't alone. There were people from all over the country going to Charleston Airport.
Right.
And we're walking through with these big boxes, and the box clearly was a rifle.
Right.
Clearly.
Uh-huh.
And people knew that, and the police were like walking us through, you know. So, that's what happened to me.
Okay. All right. So you went to Iraq?
No, not Iraq. I went to first. I went to Cairo, Egypt,
Uh-huh.
where we did some things, and from Cairo, Egypt, we then went to Riyadh, Saudi Arabia.
What did you do in Cairo?
We just did some things in preparation for where we were going.
Okay.
I would say that, and
All right.
had to take care of some stuff. And then from there, when we got to Iraq, I'm sorry, Iraq, we got to Saudi Arabia, we actually changed clothes. And we changed clothes into regular civilian clothes. So we went out of our uniform. I put on khaki shorts, a Florida State University shirt, and some sneakers, and a ball hat turned backwards. So we flew in like regular people. We just had to lay low. And so when we got there, we laid low, and a bus picked us up. It was so hot. It was so hot.
I bet.
Picture opening the oven after you set it on 375, and you get a little button go off, bing, 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 and you open it up and get ready to put something in. It was that hot.
Okay.
Oh my God, it was hot. I'd never been that hot in my life. And so all of our luggage and everything we owned was being taken care of. So they took us to a location in the city where we were going to do what we needed to do. Because remember, this was probably about 10 days into the invasion. So we went to live in a hotel. We could not live anywhere else. We lived in a hotel, very nice hotel, and our job, was to get things ready for what was getting ready to go down.
Right.
And so I was in legal, so we did contracting work. We were trying to assemble a legal team to do things relative to the Uniform Code of Military Justice. We were doing claims management. We were basically setting up a legal office in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, for the United States Central Air Command.
Okay.
That's what we were doing, and we were selected, from all over the United States to represent the Air Force in that coalition.
Right.
So that's where we were, doing our job, walking around like regular people,
Right.
who were just regular citizens. No one knew we were in the military. Well, we knew it.
Yeah.
We were armed, and here I was. I just had my bachelor's degree. I was in my very early 20s, and I couldn't believe it. It's surreal. I'm walking around here, carrying a 9mm gun, and this responsibility in a foreign place that I couldn't even pronounce.
Right.
Like probably 3 weeks earlier.
Gotcha. Any casualties during that tour?
Not because of warfare. We did have a fellow, his last name was Campese, rest his soul. We were so tired when we first got there. We were so tired. And he went to sleep on the tarmac. And unfortunately, there was a motor vehicle incident that involved him, and he passed. So that was it was an accident. And so we erected Campese Way, and on the tarmac itself. But he passed as a result of that incident. We put up a sign, so that everyone knew that this is in honor of Airman Campese.
Gotcha.
So that when you passed by, you knew, hey, this is Campese Way.
Right.
In remembrance of him.
Got it. Okay, so how long did that tour last? Where were you?
I was in Riyadh.
Right. Okay. In Saudi.
Yeah, I was in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. And let me tell you what happened.
Go ahead.
I was trying to get into law school. I was studying for the law school admissions test before I left to come to Saudi Arabia.
Right.
So I brought my material with me, and that's what I did. I continued to study while I was in Saudi Arabia under those conditions. Ultimately, I was able to muster up enough time during the evenings, because I worked alone, to get enough of the material digested so that I was going to take the test in Saudi. And what was going to happen is that one of our officers would administer the test under certain conditions as my proctor, and we would send the results back to the United States, because I was determined I was going to go to law school. Nothing was going to stop me.
Right.
And everybody in my unit knew it. And so ultimately, I had a staff judge advocate who was the equivalent of our commander, Colonel Cancela. He called me in one day and he said, man, listen, we all know what you're doing, and you're doing it under conditions that are austere. But
Right.
I tell you what I'm going to do is I will support whatever you're doing, because you're doing a great job, and to have you leave here and to go on and become a lawyer is a testament to perseverance and what the Air Force is all about,
Right.
you know, aiming high. So one evening, I was called to gather my gear and to meet at a certain location. I gathered everything I had, and I had to gather it in uniform. I mean, everything I had.
Right.
My bags, my packs, everything. And when I went to that location, the sergeant in charge of us, of the paralegals, was there, and he goes, "Hey man," he goes, "You see that out there? It was a plane. It was a C-130, and the C-130 is a troop carrier, and it was, you know, like the propellers were going, and it was sitting there. It was about probably 100 yards off where we were located." He goes, "Good luck, go." And I just couldn't believe it. He says, "Yeah, you're going home, man." He goes, "You're gonna go take that LSAT in person, that law school admissions test. You're going to go." So unbeknownst to me, what had happened was that colonel had sent that message to Langley Air Force Base, our staff, our major command staff judge advocate, and somehow they had approved my early departure from Saudi Arabia.
Right.
And I had no idea until that night. So I crouched down and I ran out to that plane, and in the plane itself there was what's known as a load master, and he reached down and he had his helmet on, his little microphone, and they have like a stair, like it's a ladder, it's a teeny ladder.
Right.
And I passed my stuff up to him. I climbed up the stairs. He gave me his hand. He pulled me in there, and I got in there, and the plane was full of Army soldiers. I was the only airman. They were going somewhere, and I was going with them.
Right.
But they were going to drop me off, and I couldn't believe it. I was flying out of there, and as that thing took off, I couldn't believe it. I'm in the dark, and they're sitting in the dark. We're on the door, sitting there on these little web seats, and they're like, "Hey, where are you going?" And we're talking. And I'm thinking, this is incredible. I'm leaving. Yeah. So I left.
Okay, so you came home and passed the test?
I did. I came home.
Where'd you come to? What base?
I came to Charleston. I went back to.
Charleston?
I went to Charleston Air Force Base this time, and then from Charleston I flew into Panama City, Florida.
Okay.
Nobody knew I was coming.
Right.
And I got home and you know, surprised everybody.
Yeah.
And then about a week later I went and took the LSAT.
So where?
About a week later I went and took the law school admissions test.
Where's that?
I was in Tallahassee. Yeah, I had to
Okay.
go up to Tallahassee to take it, so I drove up and I took that
Okay,
test.
so let's move along here. After you pass that exam, where's your next duty station?
I did not have a next duty station. After that exam was passed, I still had so much leave. I had about a year's worth of leave.
Oh, God.
So I applied to a number of law schools and got admitted to every last one of them. And I selected Syracuse. And I went back. And that was my duty station.
Right.
Because
Right.
I had a year left, so I did what's known as terminal leave. I was able to cash that in pretty much for a paycheck
Yeah.
for about the first year of law school. And I just kind of sat down and I selected Syracuse.
Right.
You know, because of my first duty station in Syracuse.
Right.
And walking around and thinking, I wish I could go here. This would be great. I wish someone gave me an opportunity to be here. So I wanted to go back to take advantage of that opportunity
Right.
that became available for me.
So that was your last year in the service?
That was my last year in the military.
Okay, so in other words, when you separated, you were in Syracuse.
I was in Syracuse. I was.
Okay, so please, before we go any further, there is another segment. Have you declared every place that you've ever visited the entire time you were in the service? I don't care whether you're on leave or whether you got orders to go somewhere.
No. I went other places.
Where'd you go?
I went to Germany, a place called Frankfurt Air Force Base,
Right.
Rhine-Main, Germany. I went to Spain, a place called Torrejón Air Base in Spain.
Right.
Let's see. You know, these are passing places. We call it TDY,
Right.
temporary duty.
That's fine.
I went to a couple other places that I can't really go into, but you know, they were fleeting. for a couple of days to take care of some stuff.
Right.
But I was only stationed, really, stateside.
Right.
In 3 places, and that
But
was.
the library is interested in all the places that you've ever traveled, period.
Well, those are the places I traveled.
That was it?
And I could just, Syracuse, New York, Valdosta, Georgia, Panama City, Florida, Frankfurt, Germany, and wherever the Terre Haute Air Base is in Spain.
Right.
There as well.
Gotcha.
Right.
Okay, so what did you do after the service?
I started practicing law.
Where?
Yeah, here. I wanted to come to South Florida
Okay.
to do criminal law, so I started practicing.
And what year was that?
That was in 94.
And you're still practicing?
And I'm still practicing.
Did you do your reserve? Did you have reserve? Did you have to complete reserve duty?
No, I had been in for close to 10 years. So
Gotcha.
I didn't have a reserve commitment. And I elected to practice and to take care of my family without that type of commitment, when I got out.
Okay. Do you stay in touch with any of the people that you met in the service?
I do.
You do?
I sure do.
What military organizations do you belong to? Any?
I am a part of the Air Force Association, and I used to be a part of the Air Force Sergeants Association. I think that I still am, but I would just have to double check because I haven't been in contact with them lately.
While you were in active duty, did you have any problems staying in touch with your family?
No.
Okay. You already said the food was good,
Excellent.
right? Did you have all the supplies that you needed through your military career?
When you're referencing supplies.
Yeah. Did you have everything that you needed to do your job?
We're talking the Air Force. Okay, so the Air Force is always ready. There wasn't ever a moment where I never had what was necessary to do what I was sent to do.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Okay. So you used your GI Bill for school, absolutely.
Well, we didn't call it that. It wasn't a GI Bill.
Okay.
It was tuition assistance before I left. But remember now, when I went to undergrad and law school, I paid for that. The only difference was that they let me go when I got my regular paycheck. I had to pay for school.
Oh, okay.
For both my bachelor's degree and I had to pay for school for my law degree. They didn't pay for a penny. That was me.
What about medical?
I had my benefits.
Do you take advantage of that?
No, I didn't retire.
But I mean now.
No, I didn't retire, and at this point, unless there's a disability, you're not entitled to VA benefits.
Okay. Okay. All right. Just a couple more questions. Did your military experience influence your thinking about war or about the military in general?
It was enlightening, I'll say that, but the influence I don't think was there, but I certainly had a different vantage point than most people.
Right.
Because I was actually involved with the armed service, and I was in a theater where there was a actual armed conflict taking place. So the enlightenment, I would say, is something that I would not have had unless I went through the military experience.
Gotcha. What do you mean by enlightenment?
Being exposed and being given access to the leadership that's in the military and the things that the military is responsible for when we are engaging with other countries or in conflict.
Right.
People don't see that, sitting in Riviera Beach. When you are in another country and you are dealing with people who get bombed, I mean, literally, like we're sitting here, like nobody in this room has ever had a missile like come through their hometown, sailing through the air, knocking out like the local mall, or no one has walked and seen babies, or like dead in the street or anything, or has dealt with people who you never knew were friendly or unfriendly in a military environment.
Right.
So that enlightenment that I'm talking to you about is unique to the military experience. Coming back to this country and knowing that we are in a place where like we can say what we want to say, we can go where we want to go. If we persevere, we can be what we want to be. It's different from other places.
Right.
Man, when we're landing as airmen in a C-141 carrier, and we see our families gathered on the tarmac waiting for us. You see hundreds of people, and they're waiting, and then, you know, our commander looks at us and goes, "Hey, they're there for us, guys. Who's gonna take the flag?" And we're fighting for it, you know, and like somebody was like, "Hey, you Johnson, get up here," and he'd give him the flag, and the door opens up, you know, and everybody's looking, you know, say, "Hey, is that my husband? Is that him? Is that her? Is that my wife?" And we're like, "Let's go!" You know, we're running off that plane, man,
Yeah.
and there's a sense of pride, knowing that like we're back, man, we're back in the United States, or we're back on American soil, you know, knowing that people respect us, and you better not mess with us. That it will let you do certain things, but if we want to, we'll take you out, and that's huge when it comes to armed forces that the United States sponsors.
Right. Okay. Last question. How did your service and experiences affect your life?
Oh, I wouldn't be a lawyer. You know, everything I told you built up to me being who I am today. And it wasn't happenstance, and it wasn't fiat. And it also helps me help you guys, you know, because I look around this room, I see, for the most part, you know, people like me, all right? And frankly speaking, like, I talked to you about Sergeant Weaver. You know, I talked to you about Sergeant Lee. I talked to you about Captain Schoon, you know. These are people who were Black Americans and who were not born with spoons in their mouths, but were able to encourage me and to be there for me, to help me get through a difficult position. And but for them, I would not be sitting here.
Gotcha.
So that military experience gave me that opportunity to interact with them. And also, it helped me with leadership. You know, I'm a manager now. You know, I am able to, like, have the confidence to speak in front of people. I think it was this young lady who came and got me, and she said, like, "You ready?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm ready. What are you talking about? Am I ready?" You know, I was born ready. I'm ready to go. It might not have been you, it might have been somebody else, but whoever came and got me, you know, was like, "No, are you nervous?" And she said, "Yeah." Am I nervous? Nervous is my partner. That's my friend. You know, if I'm not nervous, I'm not ready.
Okay.
You know, everybody's nervous, but you got to embrace nervousness. And I learned that in the military, you know, to be able to do stuff like that and be nervous.
Gotcha. Okay, well, is there anything else that you'd like to share with us? You might feel like you forgot something?
Yeah, that I was not the sharpest tool in the shed, man, as they say. Not, as what my mother used to say. She used to say, "Man, you ain't the sharpest pencil in the can." So, man, you know, you better understand that there are people out there who are studying all the time and doing all the right stuff. Well, I did all the wrong stuff. All right, I was not the best student in the class. I was not interested in school until much later on in my life. I hung out. I was very popular. I was the class president in the 9th, 10th, and the 11th grade. But my grades were horrible, just horrible. I hung out. I was one of the boys. I was in a band. Always, man, I wasn't trying to hang out, you know, with a bunch of guys. I was trying to hang out with the opposite sex. Found their company to be better. But frankly, you can do it. You know, just because you're goofing up now, or just because like something might not be going cool now, or just because your home life might be a little disrupted, or just because you may feel like, man, hey, things ain't looking quite the way I want them to look. That's today, all right? But that's not tomorrow.
Right.
So, you know, you just keep going. Just keep going, all right? That's huge. Keep going, because tomorrow is different from today.
Well, I want to thank you for your service. I want to thank you for a fantastic interview. Anybody have any questions? Any questions? Sharon?
There's a question in the back.
Go ahead. Who's got a
Your
question?
wife ever call you, like, when you were on the trips going back, your daughters?
Yeah, we were able to communicate. We had a mechanism that allowed us to speak with one another directly. So cell phones didn't exist at the time. No, cell phones weren't even.
You have to connect to somebody to get to you.
Well, we had a home phone. We had a regular, you know, and you probably don't even know what that is.
Yeah.
That you like.
The one on the wall,
Yeah.
right? We had that one. Yeah. So we had a way of calling in, and because I worked where I worked, I had access to that pretty much 24 hours a day. So if I wanted to, even in Saudi Arabia, I could just pick it up and just call her anytime I wanted to, and I did that frequently.
Aw.
Yeah.
Anybody else? We
Now's the
good?
time, now's the time. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure.